Denny's thought teenage punk show booker was renting this space for a meal. So when I first saw this, I thought it was from the satirical webzine The Hard Times. I thought this was a fake story. And then I looked closer and I'm like, oh no, this actually happened. So check this out. Last weekend, a teenage punk became an online hero. Bryson Duvall, who is 17 years old and is from Costa Rica, booked a punk show in the back of a Denny's in Santa Ana, California. The Long Beach punk band Wacko played a 20-minute set to a chain restaurant full of rowdy kids who did nearly $2,000 worth in damage. So here's what this guy told Billboard, this Duvall guy. All it took was some initiative. He paid a $100 deposit to rent the room. Denny's didn't ask too many questions. A spokesperson for Denny's told Billboard that the manager assumed he was renting the space for a meal, which is the room's intended purpose, and that no one had ever done anything like this before. Check this out in parentheses. A metal band played at a Denny's in 2013, but the spokesperson clarifies that Denny's had been abandoned and was not a functioning location. That's awesome. A metal band rocked an abandoned Denny's. All right, so Duvall helped shut down the show at the manager's insistence after someone pulled down one of the restaurant's light fixtures and someone else threw a laptop into the mosh pit and the cops were called. Duvall says she was super nice the whole time. And later he heard from the manager that they wanted $1,800 for damage and that, here, check it out. This is a quote from this guy. Later they said they wanted $1,800 for damage and that I had to pay it through cashier's check or money order. I don't even know what a money order is. Duvall isn't sure what was on the document he signed. And even if he did sign a rental contract, it's probably not enforceable under California law, though, since Duvall is a minor. How did they rent a Denny's room to a minor in the first place? And it looks like he didn't. He just gave them $100. He just gave them $100 and was like, hey, I want to use that room. And they were just like, okay, how old are you? We don't care. It's $100. We're Denny's. This is pretty funny. And I know, well, stuff got damaged, Ron. Yeah, Denny's can afford it. A light fixture got damaged, whatever. They're a huge corporate chain. They can fix it. The memories created in that space were priceless. All right, so here's what happened. Again, Duvall, I don't know how they can enforce this because he's a minor. All right, so the band set up a GoFundMe for Duvall really quickly because, again, Denny's is coming at them for the $1,800. And this guy is not trying to dodge responsibility. He's saying, okay, we got to do this. The band Wacko, they set up a GoFundMe. We knew we had to help him out. Wacko frontman Zane Drayton tells Billboard, I hadn't met him until this show. When he messaged me and asked, do you want to play a show at Denny's? I was like, oh, don't play with me, man. So here's what Duvall's mom had to say. My mom was so proud, Duvall tells Billboard. She told me, I'm not trying to be too proud because what you did was probably illegal, but I am proud. That's pretty badass. Now, you might be thinking, man, there's a little bit of a dark cloud in this because $1,800 is a lot of money, especially if you're a 17-year-old kid. That's a lot of money. Well, guess what? A couple punk rockers decided they should pay it back a little bit. Green Day donated $2,000 to repair damage from the Denny's punk show, which covers the tab. It was about $1,800. They donated $2,000. All right, and so this article just kind of revisits what happened, and that's cool. Look, I'm not the biggest Green Day fan in the world. You guys know that about me. We've talked about it on the show before. Not the biggest Green Day guy, but I respect that they did this. Look, it wasn't too long. Well, it wasn't long ago at this point, but at one point in time, that was Green Day. Green Day was playing those house shows, and they were building followings around the country, playing shows that were put on by people like this 17-year-old kid. Years ago, that was Green Day, and it really worked out for them. They became millionaires, and I guarantee you, they started doing house shows. That's how they started. You know, especially back then, punk rock bands couldn't get booked in actual music clubs. So they either had to start small music clubs or they had to just use non-traditional venues and just kind of go wherever they could find a space to put on a show. So kids would rent gymnasiums, or they would rent an auditorium, and usually the people didn't want them there. And that still goes on to this day. There's still a VFW punk scene that happens all around the country. So because of people like this kid, this Duvall kid, Green Day was able to build something that got really, really huge. So they decided to give something back. And I applaud them for that. You know, I mean, $2,000 to them is nothing. I mean, they could probably, that would be like an average person loaning somebody $10 or something. I mean, they're rich. So $2,000, especially if they split it 3 ways, you know, if everyone in the band pitched in a little bit, that's nothing for them. But it probably really helped this kid out a lot, because that's a lot of money to most people. To most people, that's an awful lot of money, but that's especially an awful lot of money to a 17-year-old kid. I couldn't imagine. Yeah, I've never even seen $2,000 when I was that age. Like you're 17, you know. Like whenever my paycheck, you know, I worked at when I was that age, was I working at a grocery store at that point? I worked at a grocery store. That was my first job. And then I worked at this is kind of ironic a little bit. I worked at a tanning salon, but I worked at a tanning salon because my friend's mom owned it. So it was like a family business. So I worked there. And yeah, I never really saw paychecks that were $2,000 or anything close to it. It was just a part-time job I had. I was making minimum wage, whatever that was back then. I think it was like $5.15. Yeah, anyway, I don't need to go into that. But good for Green Day. This is a fun story. This is a feel-good story. Thought it'd be a fun way to start Music Monday.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your